Americans love to eat. It's no secret. Americans own the title for biggest eaters, scarfing down more food on average than any other country. What's more, America is one of the most enthusiastic, sports-loving populations on the planet. So if there's anything that's more American than a good old competition, it's a good old eating competition. Today on the Goodle Days, we'll be exploring the history of speed eating, highlighting some of the most famous competitive eaters in history, and examine what competitive eating reveals about the societies that embrace it. Historical context. It may come as no surprise, but the sport of competitive eating is a thoroughly modern invention. Before the modern age, the act of producing food for oneself was an all-encompassing endeavor. Most people living in the pre-industrial age were farmers. Then came along an age that became known as the Second Agricultural Revolution, a period in Western society beginning in the mid-17th century where the food supply absolutely exploded, thanks mostly in part to several new innovations in farming. Within the span of a few lifetimes, Western society went from having no food to all the food, and the effects of the Second Agricultural Revolution are difficult to understate. For one, agriculture ceased to be the major source of social activity, leading to urbanization and the development of the working class, and giving 19th century people more free time to do the things that 19th century people like to do for fun, like studying phrenology, visiting human zoos, or picnicking in cemeteries. And most important to our topic, it changed our relationship to the food we ate. So it comes as no surprise that the first ever competitive eating tournament was a pie eating contest held in January of 1878 in Toronto, Canada. So now we're all caught up, so let's talk about some of the most accomplished eaters in history. The Eater of Kent. The story of the Eater of Kent is an obscure one from history which comes to us by way of a short account of his life published in 1630. According to the account, he was a man by the name of Nicholas Wood, a farmer from the county Kent in England whose appetite was so legendary that it bore being written down. It's said that he could eat a whole pig in one sitting, scarfing down enough food to satisfy 30 men. The account of his life makes note of a time when he entertained the nobility by choking down 84 rabbits. However, Nicholas Wood's voracious appetite would prove to be his undoing, evidently dying in poverty after spending all of his money on food and travel. R.I.P. Nick, I'm sure you would have been loved on TikTok. Takeru Kobayashi. No person can be said to have grown the sport of competitive eating more than Takeru Kobayashi. Standing at just 5'8" and weighing a hefty 128 pounds, Kobayashi flew in the face of people's expectations for how a competitive eater ought to look. He began his professional eating career in Japan in 2000, earning himself a spot in the 2001 Nathan's Coney Island hot dog eating competition. Kobayashi had one goal in mind: stuff as many sausages down his throat in 12 minutes as humanly possible. For some perspective, the previous record had been set a year prior by another Japanese competitor, Kazutoya Arai, topping out at just over 25. At a rate of 4.1 wieners per minute, Kobayashi utterly annihilated the previous record, ending up with 50 hot dogs shoved down his esophagus when it was all said and done. With his victory, competitive eating was put on the map, and Kobayashi would become its Michael Jordan, winning 6 straight titles from 2001 to 2006. In terms of competitive eating, Kobayashi was peerless, and it would take a true titan of gluttony to bring him down. In 2007, that titan would arrive. Joey Chesnut. Chestnut emerged out of obscurity in 2007 as a lean 24-year-old challenger to the king of competitive eating Kobayashi at the Nathan's Coney Island hot dog eating competition, knocking off the champ for the first time in 6 years by inhaling a record 66 hot dogs in 12 minutes. And this would prove to be just the start of Chestnut's reign of terror. Wherever there was a competitive eating competition, Chestnut was sure to make an appearance and ruin everybody else's chances of winning. He holds a record in every single conceivable variety of food you can imagine, from pizza to gumbo to deep-fried asparagus. No one has been able to challenge Chestnut's dominance of the sport. And to this day, he's ranked as the first in the nation by Major League Eating. But perhaps not for long. It looks like Chestnut is out of this year's Nathan's Coney Island hot dog eating competition, leaving the position vacant for any other challenger to take his place. Who do you think will emerge in order to take the crown from Joey Chesnut? Let us know in the comments. We learned a lot about competitive eating today. Chief amongst them that it seems to be a very clear indication of the health of a society. A society which can produce enough food for its citizens to compete against each other for who can eat the most isn't such a bad one to live in. Brought to you by ScripTalk, talking prescription labels for the visually impaired.